Welcome to The Sideshow.
Well, welcome to another edition of The Sideshow. And we are going to be following Mike's lead. Today, he has got a side for us. Mike, why don't you fill the audience in on what we're going to be talking about today?
Thanks, Mark. Today, and this one's guaranteed to bring you right down, we are going to talk about the band Joy Division, their first album, which is called Unknown Pleasures, Side 2. And Joy Division was a very short-lived band. In their first album came out in 1979. Their second album came out in 1980. And in early 1980, I believe it may have been the month of May, the lead singer, whose name was Ian Curtis, was 23 years old, was married, and had a daughter, killed himself. And this was like the week before the band was scheduled to go on their first North American tour.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was, and the surviving members of the band did not continue as Joy Division. They changed their name to New Order and actually had some success more in kind of like the techno dance music type material. And so the recorded output of Joy Division for the most part is comprised of 2 albums, a number of singles, and there was a posthumous album released called Still, which had like studio outtakes and that kind of thing, mm-hmm. as well as some live material. Mm-hmm. And then that was about it. One of the singles that was released, also posthumously, was called Love Will Tear Us Apart, which was a very successful single in like dance clubs in 1980 and whatnot. But very interesting band, a unique sounding band, in my opinion, and something that for anyone who's interested in what came to be known as post-punk music, should really check out Joy Division. Mm-hmm. But we're talking about someone here who, on the eve of success, at age 23, killed himself. Yeah. And the lyrical content of a lot of the music, it makes you understand that that's not necessarily as shocking a result as you would normally think. Yeah. The band is from Manchester, England, and the band formed after a number of the members went to see in 1976 the Sex Pistols, mm-hmm. in Manchester, England, and after this concert they're like, we got to start a band. Yeah. And I already mentioned the late lead singer, mm-hmm. his name was Ian Curtis, a guitarist named Bernard Sumner, the bassist was Peter Hook, and the drummer, whose name I can't remember, I believe his last name was Morris. But there were 4 members.
Morris?
Yeah. Yes. And so there were 4 members of the band: vocalist, drums, bass, guitarist. And they started up. Their original name when they formed was Warsaw, mm-hmm. like the capital of Poland. But they eventually changed it to Joy Division. Mm-hmm. Now, I mean, and Joy Division, the significance of the name comes from it was used in the Nazi concentration camps, like the female inmates that were brought so that the SS soldiers could, take care of any sexual appetite they might have at the time.
Get some joy.
Was called the Joy Division. Yeah, I believe. And then, when you look at when they changed their name to New Order, there's some Nazi stuff kind of floating around in there. However, there is no question the band, it was not a racist, white supremacist pro-Nazi band.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's fair to say that those connections were for purposes of irony rather than reflecting any kind of
Yeah.
ideology of the band members that could be connected to white supremacy or Nazism.
Well,
But
also, first of all, kind of interesting. I mean, this is not the first band that we have talked about that decided we should get a band together after having seen the Sex Pistols, which I mean can kind of, first of all, obviously a very, they were able through their performance to wrap, their audience into this is great, right? The stuff. I think they also had a way of communicating to their audience that you don't really need to know how to play instruments that well to to have a band. I mean, I don't mean it like that. I mean it like, hey, anybody can start a rock and roll band. Now, you might not be successful, but you can do it. You can rock and roll too, because it is interesting how many people saw the Sex Pistols and then came back home and said, we got to start a band too. And so clearly influenced by punk, but I mean, I would agree with you. They were influenced by punk, but they influenced the whole notion of post-punk, which is a different sound of music, and this music certainly sounds different than listening to, say, the Sex Pistols or other punk bands.
I guess two points in response to what you've said. Number one, in terms of the effect that the Sex Pistols had on people that went to see them, I agree with that. And the musician and music producer Brian Eno, who's English,
Yep.
Once described the first album released by the band The Velvet Underground in the late 60s. That was released in like 1967.
Mm-hmm.
And when that first album came out, he said that, yeah, when the Velvet Underground's first album came out, not many people bought it, but everyone that did started bands. and so this is they're looked at as kind of like proto punk, having some influence on the later punk rock movement. But and in terms of the whole idea of what came to be called post punk, it was kind of a type of music that took the high energy and the sort of do it yourself DIY ethic of punk, but also look, we can still put art into this music, and I think that Joy Division's music, it lives up to that. I mean, there's definitely punk rock energy in a lot of their music, but it's much artier, and the lyrics are fairly literary, very kind of depressing, kind of a downer. I mean, this isn't lyrically speaking, this music isn't particularly uplifting, but it's drums, bass, guitar. It's guitar oriented music, and it has just kind of a haunting feel to it, and part of that is the because of the producer that was involved, but it was also that these guys, they kind of had something they were interested in, and it wasn't just banging out rebellious noise. And so in some ways they are the quintessential post-punk band, because they got a very punkish feel to their music, but the lyrics were in my opinion very, very literary, and just the way the music was produced, there was a kind of a warehouse professionalism to the sound, and
I also sense a difference, certainly with Joy Divisions and this music in particular that we're going to be talking about. I mean, if you look at punk as saying we're angry, right? What I hear from here is I'm angry, not we're angry. I'm angry, and also I'm sad. That it a little bit kind of personalized the message, as opposed to a more we're angry. We're not going to take this anymore. We're going which you hear so much of in that punk message to, more of a personal about this is what's going on with me, as opposed to, the larger sense here. Just kind of a kind of a switch. I also think that there, although it is obviously very a guitar centered music, the prominence of the bass is incredibly important in this music. There is time when the bass guitar has got is as much importance in the feel and the flow of these songs as the guitar, which creates, just an interesting effect. You can almost get a sense that the very first thing that was written, at least musically, I'm not talking about the lyrics because I understand, Ian Curtis kind of wrote these lyrics off to the side before, and then he'd fit the lyrics to different songs. It's almost like he had a book of poetry and he'd pluck different things depending on the songs. But musically, you get a sense that in some cases the very first thing that was written was the bass line, right? I mean, that's what the song was built around, and you do end up with it's still a very guitar into type of, but as we listen to some of the clips through this, I mean, that's one thing that just stuck on me is the prominence of the bass guitar in this music, which of course then leads to kind of a lower, a darker, a spookier kind of feel to some of the music than you get with that just kind of driving, clearly almost guitar only, just as fast as we can play it type stuff that you'd get in a lot of the punk, especially live punk performances that these people were watching.
Well, one of the influential bands uh, uh, for a lot of punk music was the Who,
Mm-hmm.
and the Who, guitar, bass, drums. Now,
Yeah.
eventually, by the time of like Who's Next, the Who was using keyboards and synthesizers
Sure.
in their music. Bob O'Reilly and Won't Get Fooled Again, and any of the music that came after that. Keyboards became a big part of it. But as a live band, certainly up to that point, like up through the Live at Leeds era of the Who, it guitar, bass, and drums. And one of the interesting aspects of the Who is that Pete Townsend, regarded as a sort of a visionary songwriter and a revolutionary guitar player. Both the drummer Keith Moon and the bass player John Entwistle were probably technically better players. I mean, they played
Yeah.
their instruments with more virtuoistic
Yeah.
flair than Pete Townsend did.
Mm-hmm.
And I played, like I mentioned before, that I played bass guitar in a rudimentary way previously in my life. And John Entwistle was one of the guys I figured out. This guy just has a very unique,
Mm-hmm.
powerful play bass as a lead instrument
Yeah.
type skill. And I think that in a certain amount of punk music and a lot of post punk or new wave music, remembering back to the late '70s when you'd first start hearing that stuff, even bands that became kind of mainstream like the Cars, you hear the bass, just the where the bass fits in is more prominent
Yes.
than it used
Yeah.
to be. It's not, there's not a guitar hero here that's the lead or
Yeah.
the main focus of attention. It's you're focusing on a band. And another post punk band from the same era, same area, the Gang of Four.
Mm-hmm.
Gang of Four came out. Drums, bass, guitar, vocalist. And the bass is very prominent in that. And they were from Leeds, which is
Mm-hmm.
not that far from Manchester. So I agree with you that certainly on this music, and I think in generally on post punk and new wave music, the place where the bass was able to sort of step into in the the kaleidoscope of sound was more prominent.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was an aspect of post punk new wave music. But one thing that's necessary is kind of another lead up about the band, and particularly about Ian Curtis, the singer, is that he suffered from epilepsy. and it bummed him out, and he was never really able to reconcile emotionally the the fact that he had epilepsy with his life and his role as a performer, and in probably other aspects of his life as well. He suffered some seizures while performing,
Yeah.
and there were times where, given the manner in which he performed, because he was kind of a manic, the way he moved around on stage sort of person to begin with. I mean, there were some audience members who didn't necessarily know whether
Yeah.
whether something was
this part of the
happening,
act? Yeah.
or,
Yeah.
or or was that part of his performance. For
Yeah.
example, something a little more mainstream, the Talking Heads film "Stop Making Sense."
Mm-hmm.
In the version, and it was played on MTV a fair amount, of Once in a Lifetime.
Yeah.
And there's a time during that where David Byrne he starts making these spastic movements,
Mm-hmm.
and it's and with David Byrne, he's just performing, but
Mm-hmm.
it was sometimes when Ian Curtis would perform, he'd have a seizure on stage. It was kind of like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that that would be an unsettling thing to watch. It would be an unsettling thing to be the person who's on stage suffering the seizure. So that was just inextricably a part of him that was relevant. And it's going to come to a head on the very first song of side one of Unknown Pleasures. I do have a copy of the album here. I bought it as an import at the record store at the Union in the University of Minnesota in Minneapolis.
Mm-hmm.
Very simple, very minimalistic. The graphic there is those are a printout of radio waves coming from a pulsar star,
Mm-hmm.
which is and you kind of look at it there. And a pulsar star is a highly magnetic neutron star that puts out radio waves. And if you get on the internet, you can find there's a specific star that these waves were from.
Mm-hmm.
The back cover, very simple, just says Joy Division, Unknown Pleasures, a Factory Records product, and that's it. A very minimalist, and the Factory Records was run by a guy who had a TV show in Manchester, England, and he's one of the first people that had them perform on TV. And so Factory Records was where they recorded this album. It was recorded in somewhere in the Manchester area in England. And the producer was a guy named Martin Hannett. And he's credited with sort of creating some of the atmospheric sound that credited. There's some of the band members who thought that he kind of smoothed over some of the rough edges in a way that affected the quality of the music in their opinion. But I think that the band members were mostly pleased with the results of the recording, and there's a difference between what you put on record and what you perform when you're performing live. But in any case, side two of Unknown Pleasures starts with a song called She's Lost Control. And well, why don't we just listen to the beginning of the song, and then we can talk about it a little bit more on the other side after everyone's gotten a chance to get a feel for what we're talking about.
Says it all, she's lost control.
Um, okay, two things. First of all, Mark, what you were talking about earlier, the prevalence of the bass.
Yeah.
I mean, that riff, that opening riff that's a bass. It's on the
Yeah.
higher notes on the bass, but that's a bass. And no, she's lost control. I mentioned just before that Ian Curtis, the vocalist, suffered from epilepsy, and he had an experience. He was working. He had a day job, and he worked at an unemployment counseling place. The sort of place while you were collecting your check on the dole, you'd go in and are you having any luck looking for a
Yeah.
job and that kind of thing. And so he was working kind of in the bureaucracy, dealing with unemployed people on that basis. And one of the clients, one of the people who was collecting unemployment benefits that came to see him was a woman who suffered an epileptic. She suffered from epilepsy, and she had an epileptic seizure while she was in his office seeing him. And like she kind of fell off her chair and was having a seizure on the floor. I mean, and it was apparently an unsettling experience for Ian
Mm-hmm.
Curtis. And where the lyrics, the beginning, the confusion in her eyes that says it all. She's lost control, and she's clinging to the nearest passerby. She's lost control. I mean, it's
Yeah.
he's talking about the she in the song is having a seizure, and
Yeah.
the way he labels that is she's lost control. And the song is really about the fear that comes from either knowing that you're at any time you could have an epileptic
Mm-hmm.
seizure, and or as you feel it coming on, you realize I'm about
To
to
lose.
lose control.
Yeah.
In a way that's unique, and that can only be truly understood by someone that actually suffers from epilepsy and has gone through these things.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you listen to it, and it's just not talking about some woman who's flown off the handle. It's talking about a real woman that he experienced in his life who suffered from the same condition he had, which was epilepsy. And uh, uh, and it's got this sort of dark, brooding, sort of poking at you kind of
Yeah.
feel the song does, and it doesn't make you feel comfortable,
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Oh, yeah.
and
Absolutely
it's not
not
necessarily
a.
as down in the mouth as
Yeah. It's the way that his vocals, which are so low and deep, and create this kind of just kind of a spooky, sad effect just from the onset, right? It's just that's the vocal that we're going to get, and we're going to be listening to. Yes, but then you've got that bass, that kind of do 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 do, do that stays there, kind of tapping at you for the entire time. It has got a tone, an atmosphere to it that is depressing. Then when you start to ponder, what he's actually talking about, and not only was he observing someone do it, he, probably by the time this came out was experience, because he had not been diagnosed when he was doing this work when he saw her, but obviously by the time this was coming out, because he was having these episodes during performances, he had been diagnosed. So not only was he talking about someone he'd observed, he's starting to talk about himself too, right? And that feeling of, to your point, fear of what's going to happen when I lose control here. And it bummed him out when it happened to him during these performances or other points, and it that bummed outedness comes through in the music.
yeah, yeah. Um, uh, so it sets a tone from the beginning with that bass.
Yeah.
Then you hear the guitar come in after the verse, and one of the things that you notice, or at least I notice in this music, is you can sense the space between the instruments,
Mm-hmm.
and it's very austere, and it's almost like you picture the sort of landscape and just tone, like kind of like in the movie Eraserhead,
Yeah.
where the protagonist is, Henry is walking around this sort of unnamed city, and there's just a very dark,
Industrial. Yeah.
industrial, and it's almost like, if the Eraserhead guy sort of stopped and opened the door of a building and looked in, it was like this empty warehouse with a band playing
Yeah.
in the corner. That's sort of the vibe that this music gives out.
I I,
Um,
I agree. It seems to place you in a location. Another place would be you happen to be wandering. World War One has just ended, and you're wandering through no man's land, this area where all the trees have been, they're kind of in splinters and burned, and there's just a bunch of just a horrible place to be. And yeah, here's this band, that's playing in the middle of it. Just kind of a dark, just kind of space that they happen to be in when they're doing it.
yeah, uh, and again, I mentioned before, this is a man who would hang himself
Yeah.
at age 23,
Yeah.
as his band is about to expand their success by
Just as they were
touring
getting big,
North
Yeah.
America, and so he obviously had, not to down, not to
Yeah.
make light of it, but the guy had issues,
Yeah.
and and these issues are reflected in not only what he sang about, but the way he sang it,
Hmm.
and the band was able to provide an appropriately dark accompaniment.
Yeah.
But it's got enough energy to kind of make you tap your foot. I mean, you could potentially dance to the
Yeah.
music.
Yeah.
Um,
And I'd agree with you. The separation of the musical instruments and the lyrics is very clear. This is like the exact opposite of like a Motown type sound, where they're trying to get microphones everywhere to blend all the sound together into one kind of experience. Very different here, right? How you can kind of hear these coming in different places. And I mean, I don't know if they've come out, or any of this has been put to like a surround sound or 5.1 type thing. You could almost picture, just in the normal recording, how they're how separated all these different sounds are.
well, I'm not aware if there's any high resolution stereo or surround sound mixes available for this material, but if you've got good equipment and like a 5.1 setup of speakers,
Yeah.
that kind of equipment will take if you've got like a Pro Logic 2 type function on your receiver, it will put music like this on a conventional CD through all the speakers in a way, and then with the benefit of the subwoofer, will give that enhancement
Yeah.
even to a conventional CD. So it's worth checking out. Moving along, the second track is called Shadow Play, and why don't we just listen to a little bit of the beginning of this track? Another one that sort of puts the bass out there front and center, and then we can continue on the other side. All right. Well, and this is a good example of how this is guitar oriented music. We've got the basses in there, and it's also something you could see potentially dancing to.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that's or at least tap your foot to. Um, the significance of the title Shadow Play, I think, comes from the parable of the cave, or I think it might technically be the allegory of the cave from Plato, where it talks about people that are sort of brought up in life chained to the wall of a cave, and the only thing that they can see is shadows on the opposite wall that are made by other people who are behind them in the cave and doing things in front of a fire. And so they're making like shadow
Mm-hmm.
puppets on the wall. And, not to get too deep into the philosophy, but the whole idea there is that these people who are chained to the wall of the cave, seeing only these shadows on the wall, their only conception of reality is something that is an unrealistic, artificial recreation of something else that isn't real.
Mm-hmm.
And the lyrics were, here I was moving, in the center of the city where all the roads meet. I was moving through the silence, and then in a room with a window in the corner, I found truth. And I know who knows what he was talking about, but the way that I interpret that in light of the title is that here's someone who was imprisoned in his apartment, is where he lived, and it was only when he looked outside that he was able to see there's more going on in the world here than just my imprisonment in my head or in my house or in my room.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so there was, I believe that he was looking to make that point, and was
Mm-hmm.
specifically alluding to Plato and the allegory of the cave in titling the song Shadow Play, because that's
Yeah.
what he was.
Yeah.
I'm watching shadows on the wall, and none of it is real.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is, first of all, when there's just for all of the music of Joy Division, the vocals of Ian Curtis, this very low voice, I mean, to me, has always had a very strong similarity to Jim Morrison. The way that that he sings, and this song in particular, I mean, here this could be a Doors song. If you listen to the song, you could find this on some deep cut of a Doors album. Just there's a little bit of just that same kind of feel, that darkness to the voice and the power of the vocal character that just reminds me of that. Now, obviously, it's not a Doors song, and you're not going to hear this on that album. But I get that similarity when I see it. And I also agree with you. The idea of, if I'm just in here, the only thing that I've got is my own actions and whatever. I can't find any truth till I can see outside. Yet at the same time, though, there's I also feel that in getting that truth, there is a certain amount of escape that Curtis got specifically by being out of the crowd and by being by himself. He can look from inside his room, but that was kind of his castle, his protector. You've heard the statement that all the wrongs of the world come from man's inability to sit quietly in a room by themselves, which I think is true. Whereas I also get a sense that sometimes that's all that Ian Curtis wanted to do, was to be there. But that ability to observe what's going on in the rest of the world was very important to him. So I think there's a little bit of that as well into, I want to be by myself, but I need to be able to know that the world is out there and to be able to see it.
Well, in one of the verses later in the song, he sings, "In the shadow play, acting out your own death, knowing no more, as the assassined all grouped in four lines, dancing on the floor,
Mm-hmm.
and with cold steel odor on their bodies, made a move to connect, but I could only stare in disbelief as the crowds all left.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what he's talking about is while he's performing,
Mm-hmm.
while he's performing live, and that's the shadow play.
Yeah.
And you know, there's people dancing as they're performing, and then, you know, as they made a move to connect, but I could only stare in belief as the crowds
Yeah.
all left. It's sort of like, look, you know, here I'm a singer in a band, and people come and they get into it, and then when we're done, they leave.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think that one of the things that you can interpret the lyrics to mean is that his band's performance, that's the shadow play.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's not real. And presumably, you know, because obviously he was more than sad. I mean, the guy was suffering from depression,
Yeah.
because of his various issues. And normally when people are like, look, that's when I feel alive, when
Yeah.
I'm on stage, and I can be a different person. I can step into a new persona, whatever. There's a lot of people who find great release and satisfaction in being able to get on stage and perform.
Yeah.
And some of the lyrics in this song suggest that this is part of the problem.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I'm in a lousy business. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm in something where I'm presumably looked to and if not adored, at least appreciated. But when I'm done singing, they split.
Yeah.
But a little more. Just the music is a little more uplifting.
Mm-hmm.
It's still got that dark tone to
Yeah.
it, but it moves along. There's rock and roll in there.
Yes.
And so in any case, that is track number 2 on side 2, which is called Shadow Play. Moving right along, the third song on side 2 is titled Wilderness, and let's give a listen to a little bit of this so everyone can get a feel, and then we'll continue after.
All right.
All right. Well, this is the title Wilderness. I believe is used in the term wilderness is used in the biblical sense,
Mm-hmm.
and in the Bible, you know, the wilderness, which I think is usually referring to the desert, is sort of that's where people are tested. And also that's where in the Bible, you know, whether you're talking about Abraham or Moses, or, you know, Jesus goes out into the, he's in the desert for 40 nights and whatnot. That's where you meet God.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's where, the Israelites were, they wandered in the desert for 40 years after being liberated from Egypt and whatnot. And the lyrics there, I traveled far and wide through prisons of the cross. I think that's kind of a play on words for the stations of the cross.
Mhm.
What did you see there? The power and glory of sin, the blood of Christ on their skins. I've traveled far and wide through many different times. He's This song is getting at the experience of being in the wilderness, which is really the only. And I think he sees himself as being in the wilderness,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't think he's getting the benefits that are supposed to come from that
Yeah,
experience
and
in the Bible.
I can also see in here, though, being in the wilderness with that idea. I agree with you. It's in the wilderness where you have your actual contact with God. Whether it be what is written in the Bible, or this perception of being tested and whatever. I agree with you. That's where you're going to find them. And I see a lot of these lyrics as, you've got the wilderness, and then you've got something very different, which is organized religion. And, organized religion, I see a very strong critique of organized religion in here. Because you could perceive that the prisons of the cross are churches. And the things that he talks about as being, I saw the saints with their toys. Saints are a part of organized religion. Saints are declared by organized religion. Saints hold no part in one's direct relationship with God. And, all these different things that he points out here are, elements of organized religion, and kind of almost like he says, what did you see there? But I could also see it based on the way that it's spoken. He could have said, "What did that get you?" Right? Where he is potentially seeking something in the wilderness. He's going there as opposed to where everybody else in his community is going to, which is to church, to try to find this type of thing. So I've always heard this and look at these lyrics as a pretty strong critique of organized religion. And it certainly didn't seem to be making him feel any better, regardless of whether it was his church or the wilderness or anything. It's like, come on, man, give me something here.
No, and I agree that it is a critique. That's putting it mildly. I mean, it is a condemnation of organized religion in large. I saw all knowledge destroyed.
Yeah.
For example, I mean that's not a laudatory
No.
statement, but also kind of tying in with some of your comments about the previous song, Shadow Play, where he kind of determined that maybe staying in my own realm is better,
Yeah.
and so preferring the wilderness to the church,
Yeah.
the wilderness in the desert versus the church in the town, and trying to find whatever you want to call it, transcendence, fulfillment,
Mm-hmm.
answers, and another idea is that is big in Ian Curtis's lyrics is isolation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like a shadow play, just staying inside, going out to the desert,
Mm-hmm.
not being able to figure out a way to mesh with your fellow creatures.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
And you're also completely, when you look back at She's Lost Control. I mean, the loneliness of being in the midst of a seizure like that without any ability to control or communicate or whatever, also a very lonely place for these folks.
no. And the music is, it's this music is a little more plodding, and it doesn't have that same toe tapping
Yeah, I'd agree.
quality that the previous song had. But it does have that drums, bass, guitar, that sort of haunting,
Mm-hmm.
space between the instruments sort of feel. It makes you feel isolated.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, uh, and
And
there's
his vocals are also, very haunting here. I mean, the way that he lays out, the words, "What did you see there?" Almost like Boris Karloff would is opening a door and bring it. It's just kind of a haunting tone to even the way that the words are sang, especially that line, which it gets repeated so often during the song.
so in any case, Wilderness. Moving on to the next song, the fourth song on the side, which is called Interzone. And musically, this song is different than all the other
Yeah.
songs on the side. I mean, this is there's no other way to put it, but this is just it is aggressive punk rock.
Yeah.
We were talking earlier about post punk, and but there's just no other way to describe this song musically, as just being aggressive punk rock.
Mm-hmm.
And but it also, in terms of post punk, it does have that sort of artiness behind the lyrics. And the Interzone, the title comes from a fictional place that is part of the setting for William S. Burroughs' novel Naked Lunch.
Mm-hmm.
And William S. Burroughs was living in Tangier in Africa, and around the time that he was doing some of the initial writing, and may have done most of the writing of Naked Lunch while in Tangier. And there was an area in Tangier in the 1950s called the Tangier International Zone, and that was probably the inspiration for this place in the book, which is called Interzone. And Ian Curtis was apparently a fan of William S. Burroughs' work, and that's what led to the use of the title. And the whole concept was kind of, here's a place where all sorts of shit goes on, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a place where the rules don't apply, and this and that, and for any of our listeners who are curious about this and are thinking about possibly reading William S. Burroughs' novel Naked Lunch, I guess my only comment on that would be, don't. If you're really interested and you want to check it out, just to knock yourself out. But if you're looking to enjoy reading, don't. I mean, there's some interesting literary things in the book, but I'm not advocating that anyone go out and read that book. As interesting, and William S. Burroughs is a very interesting character. I've read Naked Lunch. I've read some other books by him, and he's an interesting character who's worth learning about. I mean, he was the inspiration for the old Bo Lee character in Jack Kerouac's On the Road.
Mm-hmm.
And the part of that book where Jack Kerouac describes William S. Burr, or describes the character, very interesting.
Yeah.
But in any event, with that kind of intro, let's listen to. It's a short, to the point song, but let's listen to some of it, and we'll continue on the other side.
All right.
I walk through the city limits, attracted by some
Well, you can tell there that I mean, this is just straightforward, in your face, fast, high energy guitar music.
It is. I think though that there's one element of it, especially in the vocals, that I think is a little more, for lack of a better word, sophisticated than you get in a lot of punk music. This in some cases complementary vocals. You've got two different vocal kind of directions that are coming at you, almost battling at some points of the song, which I think is very well done. This is I love listening to this song, and that play of these kind of two sets of vocals that are going back and forth is on top of that driving straightforward. I'd agree, much more like a punk rock song. Just adds something that is, I'd say, a little bit more than just a standard, just bread and butter punk rock song. So just an interesting song, fun song to listen to.
Well, and I think that the kind of the chaotic
Yeah.
Juxtaposition, if you will,
Yeah.
of the vocals, it creates an effect not unlike what Ian Curtis thought, or the band thought, it would be like to actually be in the interzone, where it's place where you don't necessarily know what's going to happen. There aren't any rules. And I was looking for a friend of mine. Yeah, looking for some friends of mine, because you're just wandering through whatever it is that's happening in this place. You're just looking for a friend or some friends, and you ain't finding them.
Yeah.
And then it's down the dark streets. The houses look the same. I walked round and round. They nailed me to a tree, trying to find a clue, trying to find a way to get out.
Yeah. Yeah.
No. And so I mean, it's like you feel like someone's running.
Yeah.
Or they're in a car and they're trying to, get past a certain, breakthrough checkpoint Charlie out of East Berlin or whatever. I mean, it's got this, and I think that because I agree with you that the vocals and the lyrics are much more arty and literary than just your typical punk song.
And it seems to add an urgency to it, the way that the vocals done. I mean, there's urgency in punk music anyway, just at the speed and the pace and the kind of the pounding, driving way that it's done. But the way that they do, I think it's an added effect that adds to the song, and it's just a kind of a cool way to present what they're going through.
And so and it's not really any more complicated than that. I mean, there's a lot of verbiage that comes out, because we basically have two guys singing at the same time.
Yeah.
And, so anyone who's curious, I mean, you can find these lyrics on the internet very easily, and it's worth checking out. But just one of the few, or let's say it's the highest energy song on this side, bar none. I mean, and for anyone who likes fast music, of the punk rock or the hard rock variety, it's worth their time.
It delivers.
And not as morose as some of the other material, which is a good thing, because when we come to the fifth and final track on side 2 on the album, which is called I Remember Nothing, we are right back in morose mode.
We are neck deep in morose.
I mean, and why don't we listen to a little bit of this, just to give the our listeners the feel for what this is about.
All right.
All right. Well, it took a little bit of time for the band to get out the idea, or for Ian Curtis, the singer, to get out the idea that we were strangers for way too long. And I believe what he's talking about is the fact that, like, he was living with his wife, they had a child, but they didn't know each other.
Mm-hmm.
And the inability to communicate, and he doesn't cast blame in
Mm-hmm.
this song. Um, uh, but I mean, you go back to, like, say, Shadow Play, where he was singing about, in the center of the city, I was waiting for you. At the depths of the ocean, I was searching for you. I was moving through the silence, waiting for you. In some ways, it sounds like he's kind of griping about a woman that he was after, but you don't really get that sense when you really listen to that song. You get
Mm-hmm.
the sense that he's what he's waiting for is something a little bit more substantial than just another person, returning his call, or
Yeah.
saying yes to going out on a date or whatever. The guy was married,
Yeah.
and but whereas the final song that we just heard a clip of, I Remember Nothing, there's no question. It's just, here's two people who are strangers. They're together, but they're strangers, and
Yeah.
and as the song goes on, if those that are interested in the rest of the song, I mean, I guess the whole point of these podcasts is to generate interest in people to actually listen to the entire
Yeah.
side,
Yeah.
and I certainly encourage that. Any Joy Division music is worth checking out,
Well, and
in my opinion. But
this song, I agree with you. It really pulls out some of Ian's reflection on his own marriage. I was married at a very early age. The not in a previous life, as I like to say, got married very early at 19, and very early to at the age also at the age of 19 to have a child. And the everybody at that time, your late teens and your early 20s, is still growing up. I mean, you're not the person that you are going to be when you're 30, when you're 19 years old. And, I can, understand the notion of, without being able to point to specific problems or infidelities or, abusive behavior or toxicity or anything like that, just the fact that two adults between the ages of 19 and 23 or 24 become different people. And, that's certainly this idea of we were strangers. We might not have been strangers when we were 19, but we are strangers now. And I can relate personally to those feelings. I think it's one of the reasons that a lot of these very early marriages struggle, and those that are able to get through it, more power to them. And they've but part of that is luck, on that ability to, as you grow in to your adult self, to have a little luck that you kind of grow into the same types of people. And clearly the stress of that, on top of his existing depression, his physical diagnosis with epilepsy, the strain of recording and touring, and some of the lifestyle things that go along with that, ended up being a fatal combination for Ian Curtis. Because ultimately, at a very early age, he took his life, and his relationship with his wife and then with this baby girl had to be a part of the struggles that he was going through.
and I take the song, and just to follow up on one thing you said. I mean, in my work, when I was working as a judge before retiring, I can remember one of the trainings that I went to very early on, and it was talking about how the human brain isn't really fully formed until about age 25.
Yeah. Yeah.
And with females it might come a little quicker than that, but basically it's just the things, maturity, impulsiveness, and
Hmm.
and those kind of things. Uh, uh, until you're 25, you most people haven't really become full blown adults
Oh yeah.
mentally.
Yeah.
And so certainly the someone who died at age 23 and was suffering from various problems, physical, mental,
Hmm.
personal,
Yeah.
it doesn't isn't throwing blame
Yeah.
at the other person, um, uh, and in some ways is kind of more violent. His hand cracks the chair
Hmm.
is a lyric that comes out later in the song. If anything, is sort of taken upon himself, maybe acknowledge. And I'm not aware that there was any physical abuse
Hmm.
in Ian Curtis's marriage or not, but um, if there was, he's not blaming it on anybody else and kind of
Yeah.
taking it upon himself. Or but in any event, it's really kind of a downer of an ending to the side.
And
But
just real quick before the one of the things that I think is very effective in this song are some of the effects. There's like some breaking glass type things, and I don't necessarily I agree with you. I don't think that he's meaning that he glasses were getting thrown around or whatever, but it adds to some of the tension, right, in the in the environment that you hear throughout the song, that I think was done very well as a part of the kind of the production process here. But absolutely, we're ending on a down note without any doubt.
well, and I think that the value that one takes from listening to this song is kind of it may be the most straightforward representation of what it felt like to be Ian Curtis.
Yeah.
Um, the other stuff we're talking about, some foot tapping,
Hmm.
some fast rock and roll and whatnot. But here, no, there's no spoonful of sugar
Yeah.
to take to help the medicine go down. And so while this is definitely not the high point of the side, I think in some ways it is the perfect way for this record to end, because it was just such a stark depiction of what apparently this man was experiencing
Yeah.
in his real life. And for some artists, there's a reason why a lot of artists have mental health issues, have substance abuse issues. Taking what's the most deep inside of you and getting it out in a way that's artistically compelling to other people is it obviously takes it out of a person.
Passing the
And
stone can be painful.
yeah, and so in any case, as there is, you just can't deny that this song is kind of a bummer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not particularly uplifting or anything, but I think as a statement of kind of raw art from a person who obviously had a lot of demons inside of him, it effectively conveyed that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Um, and and so this is the last song on the album, and and nothing else came out to my knowledge from Joy Division. This album was released in, I believe, the summer of 1979. Uh, and the next album to come out was Closer, their second album, which was after he died.
Hmm.
And the Love Will Tear Us Apart was a single that came out posthumously as well.
Yeah.
And so this song may have been the last kind of the closing musical message of Ian Curtis's life.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And, just, looking at very short time period that we're talking about, but they really did leave a mark on. There's a lot of bands that look to this as very influential, from bands like U2, that this post punk genre, and then their performances. I mean, they touched a nerve of a lot of people.
Well, and if you read books like 1,001 recordings to listen to
Yeah.
before you die, if you get on the internet like Rolling Stone, the 500 best rock albums,
Yep. Yep.
blah blah stuff like that. Critics, there's one, either this album or the album Closer,
Yep.
their posthumous second album, is going to be on there.
Yep.
This is well regarded music by the intelligentsia, musically speaking, and worth checking out.
Absolutely great. It's an important album by a very interesting and challenged band that came out with a great album and a great side of music for us to talk about.
Definitely. All right. Well, good conversation, Mark, as always, and we will talk to you next time.